Hey guys, real quick before we start this episode, as always, the deck list is going to be in the description below. I've also included the updated deck list given the release of Hrothgorn and the Wormspat. Secondly, I'm going to upload a audio-only version of this interview for those of you who don't want to have the video open, and that will be in the description below. Hopefully it works out. Without further ado, let's get into this wonderful interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the BattleCast. I am joined again by Jimmy, and last time I introduced him as the man, myth, legend for winning a Grand Clash with doing very well in the Grand Clash with the. Well, you did win with the Blood Reavers, right? You came number one? Or was it two?
It's hard to remember. I think I did win.
It's hard to, yeah, I'm pretty sure you won. But anyway, regardless, heroically, Glutton for Punishment taking the Blood Reavers to the top. And here he is again, catching my interest by, again, Glutton for Punishment, doing very well with the Sepulchral Guard. So welcome to the channel, Jimmy.
Thank you. Yes, and Glutton for Punishment is certainly accurate.
So what exactly was it that what got us talking here? I remember you had mentioned you had done well physically with the Sepulchral Guard at the Grand Clashes in Europe. Is that right?
So there was a skirmish, a Bugman skirmish, run by the folks, Nick Baton and folks from the Warhammer team at Warhammer World in Nottingham. That's kind of that Friday skirmish always occurs before any Grand Clash at Warhammer World. And so I took Sepulchral Guard to that event, which is a skirmish format, so not a best of three, but a best of one over 4 rounds. Most of the participants of the Grand Clash attend the skirmish, and it's an opportunity to have fun and get to know some folks and get some games in as a warm-up before the big day on Saturday.
That's right. And so you actually placed pretty damn well with these guys, right? Where'd you go?
Sure, yeah. I placed 15th out of 74, so I was 3-1. I was actually very impressed. I think there was a Skaven player who finished undefeated.
Oh boy,
which was awesome too.
It's impressive.
Yeah, but yeah, as far as season 1 goes, I think I was certainly in the upper end of it, and for the actual Grand Clash the following day, I took Magor's Fiends again because I'm just a glutton for punishment.
Let season 1 go, Jimmy. Let it go.
I can never. It's too close. But
it's funny.
I'm just too stubborn, and but eventually I'll realize that it's better for me to move on and play stuff empirically better.
That's right. So you mentioned this to me, and I was like, "No, I've actually already had a community deck guide on the Sepulchral Guard, but I mean, the beauty of Warhammer Underworld is so much changes in a relatively short amount of time, and the field now, as compared to then, is completely different. I bet you these guys are even better now. So my first question to you is not necessarily related to the Sepulchral Guard, but tell me about your recent tabletop experience since you were last here. So when I last spoke to you, you had been in the Grand Clash you won the Reavers with. But since then, I think you've gone to 2 Grand Clashes?
That's right.
Yeah.
So I went to Nova in Washington, D.C. in September of last year. And so I enjoy just taking stuff that perhaps isn't as common in the meta and being that little special snowflake and trying to do relatively well with it. Weirdly, there weren't that many curse breakers in the several Grand Clashes before Nova. I think they'd just been nerfed pretty hard by the far update after Power Unbound, and also there are other previous nerfs to the Empower spell action and things like that. So really hadn't seen many curse breakers, and I just painted some up and I took them to Nova, and turns out there were 8 players that brought curse breakers.
Wow.
That was fun though. There's some very interesting mirrors there. I had a very intense mirror match in the top 8 against Amon Khusro, excellent player that most people listening to this will probably know about. And the placing fourth at Nova with the Curse Breakers, a loss to the eventual winner, Jonathan Davis's Thunder's Prophet.
Well of Power.
Yeah, and of Well of Power and Path to Glory fame. And if you're going to lose, you might as well lose to the eventual winner, right?
Hey, that's the dream. If I'm going out, I want to get stomped by the winner. That's right. How it goes. And then most recently, you went all the way to merry old England with the family to partake in the grandest of grand clashes at Warhammer Worlds. Warhammer Worlds? That's what's called, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that really is the apt description for it. I mean, it really is the grandest of the grand clashes. I had a great experience there, and it was so much fun.
I mean, if their skirmish can pull, like Bugman's regularly pulls in like 70 people, which is by any standard like a grand clash. So
True.
It's pretty stunning, yeah.
Absolutely. And all of their actual grand clash events have at least 110, or in the case of this past one, 139 people, I think. So, but one of the great things is that, of course, it's wonderful to be amongst folks in the UK meta, which is great and very competitive. But there's so many players from Europe that fly over for this event too. I think there were groups of very good players that were from Germany, Italy, Spain. I think
man, they're all so close over there. To be European.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It cost me like $400 to fly, like, I don't know, an hour inland.
I know. Yeah, I feel your pain as well. Being that it's not pleasant. But hey, they're taking advantage of the easy. And yeah, they make it over there, and it's a ton of fun. So
they're representing these fellas know how to play.
That's right, and everyone coming there is coming to win, and it's just a great environment for Underworlds, and hope to be able to make it back there at some point. The way I was able to swing this one is my wife. She has a good friend, lives in Barcelona. She had a little bit, so was spinning it as a dual trip. One, she would get to go see her friend, and I would get to play my miniature toy soldier game. So
as all skilled husbands do.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. But, you're going on a trip, honey. I'm just coming along.
That's right. It's a great trip, right? Yeah. Always a trip.
What were one or two of your biggest pieces of learning that you took away from this most recent Grand Clash experience?
Great question. So one is an appreciation for all the talented players that are out there, which is great. I think it's great to see the game grow, and I think one of the comments that I heard pretty frequently at this past Nottingham Grand Clash was just how much the field has been improving. So not only are there more players that are attending some of these events, but the players are getting better, because every player I played against have been playing since Shadespire.
Oh, damn.
So, these are folks that, that have, spent a lot of time in this game and spent time getting better and improving and knew what they're doing. There kind of weren't any gimmies, which was a lot of fun, but also, a great challenge. I think there were in the Grand Clash itself. I believe there were like 8 or 10 former Grand Clash winners in that room out of the 139 or something like that. So it's plus of course dozens of people probably that had made top cuts or got close to winning. So it's just a great room, and certainly a great test for anyone's skill at playing this game. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's not a lot of catching people out or silently watching as someone makes a blunder. It's basically a series of capitalizing on the best case scenarios, and may the best man win. So or luck, of course. But yeah.
That certainly factors into it. And I guess the last thing is you asked what I learned. So as I mentioned, one thing I like doing is taking this, uncommon stuff or stuff that may not be seen as much in metas, and try to do well with it. And in a lot of other events, I can have pretty good success doing that, because I think I was talking to Davey Calkins about this of What the Heck's fame, and he and I were talking about how you, in a very competitive setting in a Grand Clash, if you drop something someone isn't expecting or hasn't played in a long time, they have to devote extra, thinking thought cycles to, one, try to understand what you're doing, in addition to optimize their own play, right? So there could be a bit of an advantage you can seek there by bringing something that's not as common. But one of the things that I saw at this event was in bringing the deck that I did, I had a bit of an unconventional Magor's build, a little more of an objective style play, which did catch some people a little bit. But overall, everyone kind of knew, of course, what my warband did, and knew what the cards were about. And one of my big takeaways is that the warbands that are at the top, that are well represented in the top 16, like Thorns and Grimwatch and all of them, I mean, they're there for a reason. They're highly powered, and they're at the top.
Yeah, because there's there's a weird thing with like the style of deck that your Magor's was, where it was like it's this like universal deck that is circulating. So I wonder if maybe you weren't able to catch people off guard as well, because they were like, oh, like I know most of the components to this deck, because it's like, same as that orc deck, or same as that whatever.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
What did you do well? What do you think you did well at this tournament that you're like, that you're really happy with in regards to your play?
Yeah, no, overall, I think I, in when I did lose, I think they were all very close games. I didn't get blown out. And think I had 4 game losses on that first day of the Grand Clash. I think for 3 of them, I lost by 1 or 2 glory, I think. So,
that's close.
Yeah, so they were close losses. And the round I lost was to Ben Davis's Lady Heroes, who he had top 8 and great player. And, it was a fun round. I was positive glory differential in that round, but lost in overall.
Balls.
So I think I had a good showing. It was just a great room full of very talented players, and
what do you do?
I think it made me empathize with a lot of the very good players that show up these events in the UK, where there's so many good players, and empathize with them. Perhaps not making the cut as many times as they would like, or
big fish in a extremely large pond.
That's right.
Yeah. What aspect of your play did you think you wish you could do better, or maybe you've noticed you could work on?
That's a good question. And that everyone has a lot of areas they could probably improve in. For me, perhaps preparation. I mean, you could always
it's a safe,
more, I guess, for these things. We all have lives after this game. Yeah, but I think getting more reps versus some of the top decks, probably being more familiar getting into the event. So these are, most of us only attend a couple, 1 or 2 or 3 Grand Clashes a year. So you have plenty of time to kind of to get some experience first at top decks, and seeking that out and trying to find people that play them well. I think that's one thing you can always do better, and get more reps in that way. I think that's or even just playing the top warbands yourself and getting a good for how they play.
Yeah, if not being able to play against someone good, you yourself play them and therefore learn their strategies and such. Yeah. So thank you for filling me in on obviously it's a tremendous experience, and as you say, playing against top tiered players, there's a lot of learning through osmosis as well, just the experience. So now we'll start our conversation about the Sepulchral Guard deck that you've been running recently. So you said that you ran this rendition of the Sepulchral Guard deck at the Bugman Skirmish. You came 15th. So that's great. Why did you choose the Sepulchral Guard, in this climate?
Good question. So also real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to Tom Nordstrom, also known as Shuby, in the um, Underworlds Vassal Discord.
Mm-hmm.
So this past weekend, he had his first Vassal tournament, which was a great experience. And actually, I highly encourage anyone to participate.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly easy. Just sitting in your pajamas at home on your PC and getting on Vassal and playing games. So the travel that is usually a big pain for getting to an event is not a barrier for that. Shubi's done a great job kind of building a community and setting this thing up. There were only sadly 6 players for the event he ran this past weekend, but it was great. All the players are great. We all had a great time. I was fortunate enough to kind of submarine my way to finishing first.
Yeah, nice.
That one, but and shout out to Benny Monahan who beat me round 1, and again I ended up submarining him and winning because there weren't any undefeated players after the 3 rounds because it was so tight. But shout out to Benny because he probably should have won, but I just happened to.
Hey, I'll take a submarine ride to number 1 anytime.
That's right. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Shuby because I know he's an avid guard player as well. So we had some good conversations about our decks.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So why'd you pick him in this climate, in this meta? What do you think about Beastgrave has made them, noteworthy?
In short, temporary victory and scrum. But I think there are a variety of things. So like many season 1 warbands, a lot of the Sepulchral Guard faction cards, particularly the objectives, these aren't very good. I think
brutal.
Yeah, I think the designers have gotten better over the past year or two of just designing better cards, and I have a better understanding of how the game works and how warbands can play effectively. So it's just a natural progression of game growth. There's nothing wrong with that. But the realistic the realistic element of it is that they just a lot of these cards aren't that good. And subsequent warbands like Thorns and Grimwatch, they took a lot of core Sepulchral Guard abilities and refined them and made them better. But that all said, I think the Guard still do occupy a nice niche between the current very dominant objective 7-man warbands in Thorns and Grimwatch. So first of all, with the Warden's special action to move 2 fighters, they don't have the amazing action economy of a Varclaw push.
No.
They can have greater action efficiency than to get on objectives than the ghouls.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they don't have an in-faction action to push fighters. So they have to rely on cards. However, on the flip side, they can't. The Guard can't summon back a model free like the ghouls at the start of the turn, like the Duke can with the monkey ability.
Mm-hmm.
But the Warden action to summon back any fighter means that they can summon back any of their heavy hitters. And summoning back a model is obviously also something that the Thorns can't do too. So they sit in between both.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Have a good combination of those abilities that with the right cards and the right play style can make them pretty effective.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. The meta itself is, Beastgrave's been pretty friendly to old objective warbands, and the Sepulchral Guard will always have, as you say, the move 2 for 1 action, and the ability to bring people back. So, and the champion is legit. I mean, that fella, and the Harvester, they can throw down with the best of them. So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Makes sense to me. We're going to get into the deck here. So we'll go through the cards, starting with the objectives, then kind of running them through, and we can kind of, for objectives or cards that don't really need a huge explanation, we can kind of just move over them quickly. Just looking at your deck here, you've got 20 total glory, which is great. You kind of need the higher glory counts these days. You got the 6 score immediately, 1/3 end phase, and amazingly, what is that? 5 faction cards for the Sepulchral Guard. So
that's right. So their objectives are trash, but they do good faction power cards.
Yeah, they do. You're right. So cool. Let's take us through the objectives here.
Sure. So Um, I think the three big ones here are the three restricted cards: Temporary Victory, Scrum, and Calculated Risk. And I think one of the themes of this meta right now is the ability to quickly and easily score a lot of these more passive objectives, especially early in the game. So I think we've all heard or played against a lot of these Thorns or Grimwatch decks that can really snowball quickly off just after a couple of activations if you draw the right hand.
Yeah.
Guard aren't quite as explosive because they don't have the cards like, let's say, Shifting Madness or Treacherous Foe or those infection cards that can really help spur that on. But I think with Temporary Victory and Scrum in particular, just by nature of how the warband's designed, they're fairly easy to score, especially if you are able to get 3 objectives and the board roll off. So those are really kind of key to this warband being competitive today. I think you have a couple other surge cards here that are relatively easy for them to score. I think if you look, Swift Capture, I think that's one you're going to try to get on objectives anyways. I think there are a lot of tools to help any warband successfully score Swift Capture if you build the right power card deck, such as Shifting Reflection and Restless Prize. And
Restless Prize is fuck, that card's strong, man. It's crazy. And Spectral Wings, I mean, I was sad to see it go, and I'm definitely happy to see it return, that's for sure.
That's right. And I think stuff like that really helps the Guard, because very clearly one of their issues is starting out with move 2. But when you have many cards that can help you close that distance or jump over multiple hexes, things like that, can really make that more feasible for them. Martyred is just pretty ubiquitous for them. It can kind of clog up your deck sometimes and perhaps influence your play in a negative sense by forcing you to maybe make a move that you wouldn't like to. But the way I look at Martyred, if I have it in hand, let's say start of a turn, there are multiple things that anyone wants to accomplish, but with an objective warband, at some point, you're going to want to put your models on the objectives, right? Typically, early in let's say second or third round, you're going to want to try to kill an important model or remove an important model, and then move your models onto objectives once things are relatively safe. If I have Martyred in hand, I'll just make the moves to put my models on the objectives first. I'm going to have to do it anyways that round. So they come in, kill a model. If they don't, I mean, frankly, they wasted an activation and missed, and that's
you can't really be sad by not bleeding glory. It's kind of, you're like, all right.
Exactly, but basically just gives me a good excuse to make those positioning moves early, and then go from there. And obviously, if I don't have Martyred in my hand, there may be other scenarios where I'm a little more aggressive with the Harvester or with the Champion, things like that. But I think Martyred fits well because they're all sitting on 1 dodge anyway. So.
Oh yeah, they're brutal. The 2 dodge thing, like I didn't even think about that in season 1. It's like Riptooth is like the first guy. It's tragic.
now everyone's got 2 dodgers.
Yeah, standard affair.
It's crazy.
You got into Path to Victory. I mean, how often are you getting that puppy?
Yeah, great question. So I think the best way. So first of all, quick step back. Right now, at this point in the meta, I guess is January of 2020. I think the most powerful decks are flex decks, where you can score the temporary victories and the other powerful objectives and surge cards that are out there. But then your power deck is built in large part to remove enemy models.
Yeah.
So I think to echo that, I think this deck can do something very similar. To your point earlier about the Champion and the Harvester, I mean, those are, when they're inspired, they're great.
Yeah, they're no joke.
They're very tough to deal with, and with the right ploys and with the right upgrades, they can get very scary. And again, if you end up killing them, you can bring the model right back and charge right back in. So
Yeah, that is a good change. I haven't played the guard since that change has been made, I don't think.
Yeah. No, it's in fact, the first time I had really heard about the guard being played in more of a flex aggro manner was from my buddy here in North Carolina, Jason Murray, from the Battle Mallet podcast, and he placed sixth with Sepulchral Guard. I think it was 20 Nova in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
That's back when Magors and Forest Riders and Turtle Cast were a big thing, and Guard really were a bit of an afterthought. But he, instead of playing them with just a pure objective mindset, he played them more flex aggro and did very well with them. So that was kind of the first time I had seen them run this way. And I think that's the best way to run them now, because they have a lot of great cards like the Necromancer Commands, which is an incredibly powerful ploy. They have a lot of other good
Restless Dads, obviously.
Yes,
probably best play in the game, really.
Yes, it's an incredibly good ploy, and it could be good for a variety of play styles. But yeah, it's great for aggro as well, especially because you can summon a model back and charge immediately after that. So there are a lot of good cards that can facilitate a nice aggro or flex aggro play style with them. So yeah, Path to Victory, I can score it pretty reliably, especially with the number of Horde warbands that are in the game right now, or popular.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, of all warbands, you kind of need the ball to get rolling. These guys do, and they certainly have some of the tools now thanks to the new cards. You got Frugal, you got Great Gains, which makes a lot of sense. Hoarder. I mean, how often are you getting this puppy?
So if I'm not, if I don't have to, let's say, dig shit because I draw turn one and I don't want to clog up my deck, if I draw turn 2 or 3, I score it almost every time. The important thing about a Hoarder, if you put it in any deck, is that you really have to start counting your glory in the second turn or second phase. If you're able to do that, I mean, if you have Hoarder, you just can't autopilot play your game, put upgrades on whenever you'd like. Just
that's a good point.
If Hoarder wasn't in your deck, you kind of have to pay attention to it.
Yeah, a lot of people just kind of go for the win more strategy. They're like, I'm going to fucking attack with Moloch for 10 damage. And it's like, well, did you need to, though? Because you only needed 4,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are certainly some upgrades that are nice, but unless I really need to tack on some damage to remove an important fighter, I don't really need any of the upgrades I have to score a lot of my glory. So yeah, I just make sure I have a good keep a good track of what glory I have around when I'm in the second turn, and hopefully am able to keep scoring enough to get Hoarder in the end. But yeah, I score it almost every time if I don't have to ditch it early.
Wow, yeah, that's a good card. It's one I haven't played with a ton, but the guards seem like they might be the right type. Right guys for it, especially because you can bring back fighters. You upgrade a guy a ton, he gets out of action, you just bring him back. It's like you're not losing your investment, you're able to use it again. So it's kind of nice.
I would be, I don't know if this could be a rule of thumb. I haven't thought too much about the exact number, but I'd be pretty scared to run Hoarder in a deck that didn't have at least 18 total glory.
Yeah, no, I would be too. I mean, at least you just need to score half your glory. Obviously, you need to spend some on upgrades, but presumably you're only going to spend them if you can make that glory back. So,
yeah.
Nice. Moving on to the Gambits, where the real fun starts.
That's right. In just from my play style, obviously Restless Deads and Necromancer Commands are arguably maybe the most powerful cards, cards for guard, and are just excellent. My favorite card and probably my MVP most games is Mischievous Spirits.
Interesting. Go on.
So the power of that card is that just by how the game flows, you're drawing up your hand. Your hand at the start of each round. So, for example, I draw this turn 1. I know I have Mischievous Spirits in my hand. My opponent does not. as a result, I'm not going to move my models before I play that card onto objectives first, right?
Yeah.
The opponent may, and that's actually why I'll wait maybe an activation or two before I play the card, hoping that or maybe use a very important ploy, such as 2 steps forward or drifting advance or anything else like that to move their models onto the objectives, and I can play Mischievous Spirits after that, basically inside the card or any moves or activations they've already spent. They kind of throw their plans up in the air, and at the same time, since I know I have that card in my hand, I haven't made the same mistakes. So I think it's right now with how popular play is. That's been such a critical card for me. I ran it in my Magor's deck too. It's just incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and so one of the key things that you're outlining here, which maybe a lot of people know, maybe they don't, is there's a tendency with Mischievous Spirits to want to position your fighters so that you can play it in the fourth end phase and magically move everything underneath your fighters. But what Jimmy's saying is that the guard can move 2 people with 1 action. So if you're playing against the Grimwatch and they don't, and they spend 2 activations moving people onto objectives, and then you just kibosh it, that's 2 wasted activations. Whereas for you, it's 1 wasted activation. So it's or not at all, because you had you were doing other things. So yeah, playing Mischievous Spirits, turn 3, turn 2 is actually pretty legit.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think the second game of the Bugman's Clash, I was playing against a Grimwatch player from Holland, great guy named John, and he'll probably attest to this too. My Mischievous Spirits in the second round was probably that was a single card that won the game for me. He had kind of expended a ploy and a move action to try to get his guys in position to score both in the name of the king and temporary victory. I Mischievous Spirits kind of threw all those plans out for him, and he had to be forced into a very tough decision of, okay, well, do I spend just the remainder of my turn trying to salvage this, or do I have to deal with the champion and the harvester, which are just about to come down the pike and kill some ghouls? And it was just it put him in a very tough situation. So I think a well-timed Mischievous Spirits in this current meta, where sitting on 3 objectives is so powerful, is a very valuable card.
No kidding. It's a very trippy card too, because there's so many choose 2 fighters, push them 1, things like that. So it's they move 1 guy onto an objective, and you're like, oh god, do I have to do it now? It's kind of yeah, cool, man.
The general rule, and I mean, everyone's been playing recently probably had similar experiences where you probably play, let's say, a 2 steps forward or I forget all the names of the amazing ploys that are multiple model pushes, but every new Beastgrave warband has
seems to have them. Yeah,
but they'll play that card or a Restless Prize plus a side step, whatever it is, and so the next activation, they move 1 model and score temporary victory, for example. So at that point, they play that card. They look at you and say, okay, well, do you have a card to counter this? So Restless Prize or Distraction, Mischievous Spirits, right? Either you have it or you don't.
Yeah, no, exactly.
The nice thing about Mischievous Spirits is that unlike a Distraction, it throws all of their plans into disarray.
Yeah, I love it.
And especially if you have not wasted those same activations to put your models on objectives, you can have a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, no, especially with the guard. It's not like you're pushing people around, you're moving them, so you really gotta remember not to commit.
That's
nice. Right. Yeah, good. What's next for you?
Yeah, so a lot of the cards are cards that'll just help me score some of the objectives. For example, as I mentioned before, Shifting Reflection for sort of capture. I think it's always good to have Distraction, or in this case, Terrifying Screams.
Yeah, respect. You got to go for the faction specific.
That's right. And Restless Prize is, I mean, it may as well be stapled into every deck that's
God
trying to
damn, is it good? It just, man, they should almost fire it later in the season just to mix things up, because like it's so good.
Agreed. And it's so funny because I know everyone has a similar experience where you play Restless Prize and the other person plays Restless Prize right back to put the objective back where it first was. So, yeah, everyone takes it. So I wonder if they perhaps they should restrict it.
Mm-hmm.
But, just, to inject a little more variety. But it's such a powerful card right now. Haymaker, because they're all my guys are in one defense die anyways.
Yeah, you're like, fuck it, yeah, whatever.
and landing an important attack, it's pretty helpful. And Spectral Wings, that's one of the big deficiencies of Guard is their movement. But with Spectral Wings, I can get most of my guys spread anywhere I want them to go.
Pretty much, yeah. No, it's what do you so Frenzied Search?
Oh yeah, sorry, that's a big omission. So Frenzied is it is. I guess I'd almost compare it to Restless Prize. It's like if you're running a deck where you're sitting on objectives, just why not take it? I mean, such a powerful card. 3 ploys in any round to allow you to have, effectively 7 power cards in your hand. One has 5. That's one helps you cycle through all of your power deck, but also just having those extra ploys can be very powerful, especially if you feel like a lot of decks will have ploys or upgrades that they need in order to score certain cards.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not too many, but in my case, I think Swift Capture is probably the most important example. If I'm searching for a Reflection or a Spectral Wings or a Terrifying Screams to push someone off before I charge onto the objective to get or even Mischievous Spirits to move an objective from the underneath a model and charge on the next activation, that kind of thing. So
yeah,
Frenzied Search is so good if you have any ploys in your deck that you need to score objectives. So yeah.
Well, and especially as you say, in a meta where it's all about having the right card at the right time, and buddy's going to play Mischievous Spirits on you, and it's totally fucked your plan. Well, you might as well Restless Prize and try and dig for the 2-step forward, because, I mean, why not? Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Nice. No, that's makes a lot of sense. This this deck looks good. I think this will be. I've got my card painted too, so this will give me a nice excuse to get him out on the field. How about these upgrades here?
So one thing that may be a little bit different here from other folks who run Guard is I have a lot of damage upgrades.
Yeah, I see that. It's like all combat all the time.
Yeah, and I think there is certainly a viable build using keys with Sepulchral Guard. I think keys are better with Thorns right now, because with Thorns, they kind of don't need as much of a buff to their damage to be very effective. The Briar Queen goes to 3, Varkla goes to 3.
Yeah.
1 or 2 additional cards that can one-shot most models.
Basically, yeah, they can afford to kind of stray.
So they all go to 2 defense die when they inspire. I mean, they're just I think keys just make a lot more sense with Thorns, with the Guard, especially with my current play style with them, which is a little more flex aggro. I just prefer the damage. I mean, so the champion is great, but he's still 2 base damage. The Harvest is great, but still 2 base damage. So
yeah,
the only model that inspires to 3 is the Warden, and you kind of want to keep him back anyways. If he ever attacks, it's typically at the very end of the game if I just need to get rid of a model in my side of the board. So having 3 damage upgrades allows me to reliably get 3 and perhaps 4 on some of my heavy hitters when I need it. Because the one thing they don't lack for is accuracy. They got tons of accuracy in the Guard use. So when
they are pretty accurate. Champion, fucking 3 hammers for 2 is like, all right.
3 hammers for 2 with cleave. The Prince is 3 hammers, 3 swords, and the Harvester with scything. So they're gonna hit a lot. It's all about the damage where they're efficient. So 3 damage upgrades. Blazing Soul is great. That's a card that they probably were missing for a long time, because having to have one of the models die and have to bring them back in order to really get the buffed up stats is a bit rough, especially if smart players just ignore those models. I mean, in the past, every smart player would just ignore the champion, right?
It's exactly, yeah, it's bullshit.
But with Blazing Soul, it's a lot more dangerous to do that, because you can have that card and upgrade him and send him in and do a lot of damage. So Blazing Soul is great. I like Tome of Glories just because instead of let's say maybe a card that where they could replace it like a key or something like that, you get earlier in the game. And since I have great gains, there have been a couple of times where I've been sitting on the 4 glory for that phase, and having the Tome of Glories there guaranteed where I can get that glory to get to 5 for great gains is great. There's always a petitioner sitting somewhere in an objective that isn't doing anything else. So yeah, and if you draw it early, then potentially they can score maybe 2, maybe 3 glory, and the fact you can bring them back means you don't lose it if they get killed. So I think Tome of Glories for guard is pretty good.
Oh man, yeah, the round where you use it, get killed, bring them back and use it.
That's right. Oh, I actually have not.
No, it'd be kind of weird because it's like a 2 glory play over 4 activations, but I don't know, there might be a time and a place.
You never know. And actually, this reminds me of something I forgot when I was talking about Mischievous Spirits. With this deck, always when you're moving the objectives on your side of the board, try to move the objectives onto starting hexes, because then you can summon your models right back on top of objectives. That's a very big point.
It's a massive tip, and I honestly didn't know that you could do that.
Yeah. So you just move the objectives onto starting hexes, and so when you summon a model back, you can summon them onto an objective.
Yeah.
And then last couple of upgrades. Larva Lance is great for any Horde Warband.
Dope. Round 3, you just get turret.
That's right. And formless keys. Like I said, I do have a key, and again, this usually goes on a petitioner somewhere in the back. So it just, if someone really wants to kill them, sure, they probably can, but that means they're not launching an attack at the Harvester or the champion, and then they're going to be coming their way eventually. So
no, it makes sense. It seems like a very smooth playing deck, and I also enjoyed playing the guard as flex, because if you just play them objective, then you basically get the shit kicked out of you. Maybe not in score, but you just, the guard are really good at dying. 1 dodge, it's awful. 2 move, you just, every turn you're losing. So at least here they can fight back, and they're actually really good at fighting back as long as they have the glory. So it seems like a good deck.
They're really good. They're very accurate, and yeah, if you just buff up their damage, they can really hurt.
No shit. Let's talk about boards and orientation of boards. What are your go-to boards and their orientations versus your certain matchups? If you can let us know.
That's right. Yeah. So with let's say a season 1 warband, or all right, with any warband, I think something that is overlooked often is board choice and positioning of boards to make sure your models are placed in the right positions. Waste activations early. I think, as I mentioned, I think season 1 warbands are typically less forgiving. The best example is to contrast with Sepulchral Guard is Thorns. Thorns have the Warclaw push, so you can push 5 models 2 hexes whenever you like. They also have sudden appearance. You can take any model and place it wherever you like on a starting hex anywhere on the board. So there's a lot of options, and there's a lot of leeway.
Yeah, they really went for it with that warband.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of leeway, and you can afford, frankly, to make a few positioning mistakes and still be fine. With guard, because they're all 2 movement, the Warden's action, you can't move models multiple times, and they get move tokens and a whole host of other limitations. I think it's really important if you want to play Guard competitively to make sure you choose the right boards, and to also make sure you position your fighters in the correct starting hexes on that board. Because one of the things that you really want to be able to do, if you're lucky enough to draw into any one of Temporary Victory, Calculated Risk, or Scrum, you want to be able to score them in one activation. So I think, you won't be able to score Temporary Victory, but score the other two in one activation, and score Temporary Victory in two. So I think, and lastly, with that, have the right models on the objectives for Temporary Victory. So if I win the roll-up, obviously I'm taking objectives. The first board I'm picking is Shattered Refractor. So it's the one with the 3 starting hexes right in the middle of the board. So it's the scurry board, right? It's the one that gets love too. So with that board, 3 models right in the middle, it means, of course, you can score Scrum pretty easily with either a single move action or a Warden move action. It has a lethal hex for scoring Calculated Risk. And again, because they're 2 move, any lethal hexes you have on this board have to be right next to a starting hex. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to score it.
Yeah, no, very important.
And for Temporary Victory, they have some great options for where to place those objectives. One, hide them from your opponent, but also make sure they're within easy reach of your model. So I think that's my go-to every time. The first time
that that's a good board.
Yeah, great board for them. So the second board, if I win board choice and I take objectives, that I'll use is Soul Refractor. Another nice thing about both the last board I mentioned, Shattered Refractor and Soul Refractor, is it has a nice hex in the back for the Warden. And right now it's a pretty Thorns heavy meta. One of the things that the Warden is very afraid of is a Briar Queen doing 4 damage back and killing him. And it's a quick aside, that's actually another thing that I think the Guard benefit from in Beastgrave is not having hidden paths in the game anymore, because previously previously any aggro model could hidden paths in the back, kill the Warden right away, and then Guard players would be playing really on their back foot. With the fact they have 7 models, there are lots of good boards with lots of either blocked hexes, lethals, things blocking the way, so you have to kind of get through a lot of the other models before you get to the Warden. It protects the Warden, especially turn 1, and as a result, it keeps him alive for longer, so you can take advantage of his abilities. So I think
it's crazy. Like I was playing Warhammer Underworlds online today, and Hidden Path is in it, and like, fuck, man, you just ruined people with that card. It's terrible.
Oh yeah, you had some nice flashbacks, right?
Totally. I was like, I missed you, old friend. Give me time travel.
That's right. So yeah, I probably should have mentioned that earlier, as far as one of the things that enables them to be more solid right now than they were in the past is hidden paths ain't there. So but as I mentioned with sudden appearance, so Soul Refractor, there's a hex. So typically your opponent will place the board so that the block text in the middle, so the single block text in that triangle, is facing them. So the opposite side of that, there's a single starting hex right in the back. It's right next to a block text. There really isn't a good sudden appearance target to get in there and kill the board.
Yeah, leave them there.
Like that board. For Calculated Risks, because of Beastgrave, you can place a lethal hex. You place it somewhere convenient, and so you can score that as well. So
it's kind of funny. That's another thing that obviously helps, is like being able to place the lethal hex makes Calculated Risk viable on any board.
Yep.
And like some of the boards with lethal hexes, they're not good for Sepulchral Guard, but now you can just turn any board into a good board. So
Absolutely. Yep. Totally agree. And if I lose the board roll off, and more than likely the opponent's going to take 3 objectives and allow me to align the boards, the first choice is always going to be Molten Shard Pit. So in that scenario, because they're all 2 move, I want to make sure as many of my big hitters are as close to the opponent as possible. So Molten Shard Pit is certainly the best board for that, with 3 starting hexes right up on the line. And coincidentally, with 3 starting hexes, I have kind of 3 beefy, heavier hitting models in the Prince, Champion, and the Harvester. So that matches up pretty well. And also that one does, in addition, have a nice starting hex in the back corner that's where another starting hex is more than 2 hexes away. So again, the Warden can't be sudden appearance to death.
I mean, it's a weird map because like one of your petitioners is going to be like decently vulnerable.
So good point. So I put the when I play Molten Shard, but I always have 2 objectives. I put one to the right of that block text, directly to the right, and the other one I put directly to the right of the one of the lethal hexes. And in the first activation, I will typically have the Warden give his move action to move 2 models on, and I'll take that petitioner's lined up furthest front and move him back onto that objective next to the lethal hex.
And so presumably you've got like a lethal hex you're moving through or something.
Yes. So it depends where so in this scenario, the opponent is placing their lethal hex first. So oftentimes they'll place a lethal hex somewhere it's pretty convenient for me, like say in front of one of my 3 aggro models, and I'll just kind of calculate a risk that way by just charging them into someone or just moving them forward. But yeah, I can place a lethal anywhere over there to make it easy to score calc risk.
Yeah, thanks, man. No, that's a big help because, as you say, the Sepulchral Guard do not forgive you for positioning errors. So if anyone wants to pick them up listening to this, it's going to be a big help because it's a very painful match when you choose the wrong board.
Yeah, I would actually. This is something I did a couple of times before I took him to an event. Is put the boards out, put your models out on the board, and just take a few minutes to position your models and just go through the first move or 2, because that'll help inform which models you place where, and also let you know how many activations you need to score a scrum, to score a temporary victory, things like that. It's good to kind of rehearse that just for a few minutes, so that when you're there, it's not you're not trying to figure it all out right as the game starts, because then inevitably anyone, even a good player, would make a mistake.
Yeah, totally. No, you've done a good job of giving finite answers. A lot of times when I have people on here and they're talking about, they're like, well, it depends, and it's like, I know it does, but I'd love a place to start.
That's right. And yeah, I don't and to that point too, I don't mean to say that I have the best way of playing them. The way that's worked for me, and I'm sure there are smarter people out there that can figure out a better way to position these guys in the boards or use different boards perhaps. But this is what I've done that I've had some success with. So,
and also, like, I think the thing that people want the most when thinking about Sepulchral Guard is the best chance possible to have a good time, because historically they're the warband you play when you want your opponent to kick the shit out of you. So you're giving them hope. It's wonderful.
That's right.
So strategy, objective placement we've talked about, makes sense. Far away, near your guys, obviously through the lethal hex kind of thing for scoring calculated risk. Deployment of fighters sounds like, the Warden in the back, your big boys up front.
Petitioners in the middle, yeah. Just making a nice petitioner sandwich, right?
Yeah, petitioner sandwich.
The big boys are up front, and the Warden is that nice, tasty bun at the bottom.
Exactly. It's an open faced sandwich. matchups. Who do you like to play when you're playing the Sepulchral Guard?
So weirdly, I think Sepulchral Guard play very well into Grimwatch. I was actually talking to Jonathan Davis about this. He was very kind to help me practice before Nottingham, and was playing into his Grimwatch, and we had a couple of very close games, and we're kind of coming to the realization that I mean, both feel that Guard do play pretty well in the Grimwatch, and I did the one matchup I did have at in Nottingham at the Bugman skirmish I won too. So I think the big deal for them is, as you kind of discussed in the very beginning, they have a little better action economy with the moves to get onto objectives. And then also they can summon back their big heavy hitters and the ghouls cannot. Mm-hmm. So if I'm able to kill Gristlewell early with the champion or with the prince, and they're all very accurate, so they're definitely going to hit them. I think I don't really care if, let's say, those guys get killed back, so I can summon them back, but the dude can't summon back Gristlewell. So I think overall it's a tough matchup because Grimwatch are excellent. They're one of the top warbands in the game right now, and at this point I think they've won the last 3 grand clashes with over 40 attendees, I think, right? So they're very good, but I think Guard do play pretty well into them, all things said. I think on the opposite side of the coin, I think they're very bad into Thorns. I think Queen, if she's tooled up, can, especially if she has Tome of Offerings, can just lay waste to the Sepulchral Guard. And I think one of the tough things that they can score all of the very common, very powerful objectives like temporary victory and scrum if they want, and all those other things. But also can be aggro and very aggro into a very paper mache warband like Guard. So that's pretty scary. So I think Thorns is a bad matchup. Grimwatch are a solid matchup.
Yeah, I think that I remember playing Sepulchral Guard into Thorns because I was like, let's see who takes the cake here. And I remember like Briar Queen doesn't need anything. Like she just goes in, no upgrades, and just starts killing your whole warband. Just like it's nothing. Yeah,
and there are a lot of great upgrades for her these days. So between sudden growth or survival instincts. So, although another point for the Guard, though, given survival instincts is so popular right now, that's the Champion's Cleave is very valuable in taking on those models. So he's always a big help against that particular upgrade. But yeah, the Thorns are just really good because they have great action economy, can get all their guys onto objective 2, but then again they probably can do the aggro stuff better than you can. So tough matchup. But everyone else, I mean, I think Rip is probably a tough matchup. I haven't played that matchup, but I can imagine it can go pretty poorly because it just takes it takes a lot for the Guard to kill 4 wound models early, and by that time the Snarlfangs could be feasting on a bunch of 1 defense die fighters.
It's their heyday.
Yeah.
I love that. Nice.
That's right. But in general, I think Guard, they probably play reasonably well into most warbands, just because they can score so much glory. They've got relatively good action economy, and they can bring back some pretty scary fighters and win that war of attrition over the course of 3 rounds of a game.
Yeah, man. No, that makes sense. I'm definitely going to bust them out on the channel. I've been kind of looking for another warband to mess around with, and the Sepulchral Guard are, I don't know, they're like clickbait machines. You're like, I'm playing Sepulchral Guard, and people are like, oh my god, like it's amazing.
Yeah, no, they have been a ton of fun to play. So I'm very happy to be playing them now, and the deck is a lot of fun. So I encourage anyone to give them a shot, and hope to see more Guard players out there in the future.
Yeah, man. No, it's good insight. Well, appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this deck here. I can't wait to give it a go. It'll definitely be my next report. I've almost actually packed up my Shadespire stuff and kind of put it in like a separate area, so I'll have to bust it out and pull out all my cards and stuff. So good insight, and well done. Well done for taking this Shadespire Warband to the next level. It's great.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate it. And I'll always be talking to you, Justin.
Yeah. Who's your next season 1 mission?
I was talking to a buddy about that, and I may finally smarten up and try to play something that came out after season 1.
Yeah, might be a good idea. You might find you do surprisingly well.
We'll see. But no, it's always fun to throw some of the older stuff, and I wax nostalgic all the time, so I'll always go back to it at some point. But yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure what the next event that I'll attend will be, but yeah, I'll have something fun in store, I'm sure.
All right, man. Well, thanks for being here, and thanks for shedding your light on this. Can't wait to play them, and as always, you're great to have good players pushing the limits of lesser known warbands. So thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Justin.
Cheers. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please consider supporting the channel by liking this video or subscribing to the channel, and especially hitting that bell icon. Feel free to leave comments in the comments section below. I love talking with you guys. Until next video, I'll see you then. Thanks.